The Russian military, which President Vladimir Putin has claimed to be the second strongest in the world, has suffered a shocking setback. This time, the humiliation is not in Ukraine or even within Russia's borders, but rather in Syria. The once imposing force has been forced to retreat from key military bases in the Middle Eastern country. These bases, which Russia had poured billions of dollars into constructing, have now been abandoned, adding to the mounting embarrassment. Rebel forces, showing no signs of slowing down, have made unprecedented gains, capturing cities and pushing closer to Damascus, the Syrian capital. The fall of Hama, Syria's seventh largest city, has sent shockwaves through the region. For the first time in decades, the Assad regime, which has been in power since 1971, has lost control of two major cities in just a matter of days. This unprecedented turn of events has led many analysts to believe that the days of President Bashar al-Assad's regime could be numbered, a regime that has been propped up by billions in Russian support. The outcome of these recent battles could mark the end of Assad's reign, a significant blow to Putin's ambitions to maintain influence in the region. The developments over the last few weeks in Syria have left experts stunned, especially given the decades-long hold the Assad regime has had over key cities. Losing control of Hama and Aleppo, two strategic hubs, could have severe consequences not only for the Syrian government but for Russia's involvement in the country as well. This article will break down the latest updates from Syria, highlighting the key events that are shaking up the region. Before delving deeper into the recent developments, it is important to examine the significance of Hama's capture by rebel forces. This city, one of Syria's largest, is strategically important because of its location. It lies at the intersection of several major roads, linking the country's center with the north, east, and west. Rebel forces managed to capture the city with little to no resistance, leaving behind a significant amount of military equipment that had been left unguarded by the Syrian army. The speed at which the rebels advanced, and the fact that they faced minimal opposition, speaks volumes about the crumbling state of the Assad regime's military capabilities. In the midst of this chaos, images and videos emerged showing Islamist rebels entering Hama unopposed. The city's streets were nearly empty as the rebels moved in, and local residents cheered their arrival. As the rebels filmed their victory, the Syrian army issued a statement claiming that they had evacuated the city in order to spare civilian lives. However, this claim should be taken with skepticism, considering the regime's history of harsh treatment towards civilians. What is clear is that the Syrian forces withdrew so hastily that they did not have time to destroy the military equipment they left behind. This equipment, much of it of Russian origin, is now in the hands of the rebels. For Russia, this is a worrying development. The prospect of these advanced weapons falling into the hands of opposition forces poses a direct threat to Russian interests in the region. Additionally, there is a concern that these weapons could end up in the hands of NATO allies, particularly Turkey, who could reverse engineer them to better understand Russian military technology. This could give NATO a distinct advantage in the event of future conflicts. The speed with which the rebels seized Hama and the sheer volume of military hardware they obtained speaks to the disarray within the Syrian army. The rebel forces managed to take control of military bases, air force facilities, and even warplanes and helicopters, all without facing significant resistance. It's a remarkable turn of events, considering how entrenched Assad's forces were in this region. The sudden retreat of the Syrian army is not just a loss of territory, but also a loss of credibility and strength in the eyes of their supporters and international observers. The situation in Syria has taken a dramatic turn, with the rebels not only gaining control of key cities but also challenging the Assad regime's ability to maintain its hold over the country. The loss of Hama and Aleppo is unprecedented, and the rebel forces are now advancing towards Damascus. The prospect of Assad's downfall is becoming more tangible as each day passes, leaving Russia in a precarious position. Adding to the complexity of the situation, Russia's Mediterranean fleet, based in the Syrian port city of Tartus, was forced to abandon the base in the face of mounting pressure from rebel forces. Tartus has been a strategic naval hub for Russia for decades, but now, for the first time, the Russian Navy has pulled all its vessels from the port. This move underscores the severity of the situation on the ground and Russia's inability to maintain a secure foothold in the region. The retreat from Tartus is not just a symbolic loss but a strategic one, as it exposes the vulnerability of Russia's military presence in the Mediterranean. The rebels' rapid advances have put them within striking distance of Tartus, and if they manage to seize control of the region, it would cut off the Russian Navy's access to Damascus. This would be a devastating blow to Russia's ability to project power in the region and maintain its influence over the Syrian government. The loss of Tartus would be a strategic setback for Putin, who has invested heavily in supporting the Assad regime. The situation in Syria is not just a military defeat for Russia, it is also a diplomatic and political disaster. The rapid withdrawal of Russian forces from key positions in Syria reflects poorly on Putin's leadership and raises questions about Russia's ability to maintain its influence in the Middle East. The fall of Hama and Aleppo, coupled with the retreat from Tartus, has exposed the vulnerabilities of the Russian military and undermined its credibility on the world stage. In addition to the military and strategic losses, the Russian retreat has had a significant impact on morale. Russian soldiers and military advisors have been forced to abandon equipment and leave positions they had spent years establishing. This sudden evacuation has left behind valuable military assets, which have now fallen into the hands of the rebels. The fact that these assets were not destroyed or evacuated in an orderly manner suggests that the Russian forces were caught off guard by the speed of the rebel advances and were forced to flee in haste. For Putin, this is a blow to his prestige and his geopolitical ambitions. The Assad regime, which has been a staunch ally of Russia for decades, is now on the brink of collapse. Russia's intervention in Syria was always framed as a means of protecting its interests in the region and maintaining a foothold in the Middle East. However, the situation on the ground is rapidly deteriorating, and the prospect of losing Syria as a strategic ally is becoming more likely. The retreat from Syria is a significant loss for Russia, both in terms of its military presence and its political influence. For Putin, this defeat represents a failure to maintain control over a key partner in the region. It also raises questions about Russia's ability to maintain its global standing and influence, particularly in the face of growing opposition from rebel forces and international critics. As the situation in Syria continues to unfold, the world will be watching closely to see how Russia responds to this unprecedented setback. The loss of Hama, Aleppo, and potentially Tartus marks a turning point in the Syrian conflict, and it could have far-reaching consequences for Russia's future involvement in the region. For Putin, the stakes could not be higher. Losing Syria would not only damage Russia's influence in the Middle East but also tarnish Putin's image as a global power broker. The coming days and weeks will likely determine the future of both Syria and Russia's role in the region. The question remains, can Putin recover from this crushing defeat, or will it mark the end of Russia's ambitions in the Middle East?